Hello everyone. In this video we're going to be looking at bringing it all together, part 1. So let's get to it. Okay, so in this video we're now going to take all the knowledge that we've gathered over the last few videos and put it all together to learn and fully understand how the auto placement algorithm works from start to finish. So what I have on my screen are 4 grids. And inside of each grid, we have a number of items that are positioned in certain locations and have different colors, so to speak. So you can see there are 4 of them. Now, for the purpose of this video, all I'm going to be doing is working with the first 2 grids. For the other 2, I'm going to suggest that you try them in your own time. Now, I'll have the answer to both of those and I'll include them with the resources, but I want you to try it yourself, see if you can get the same result, then confirm with my answers. Now, you might be asking, what's with all the colours and what do they all mean? Well, essentially, the colour of the item determines how it has been locked inside of the grid. So red items, for example, are explicitly positioned items. Yellow items are items that are locked to either a row or a column. Now, whether it's row or column is determined by the flow of the grid. So for this first grid here, the items are flowing in a row-based direction, so that means these yellow items are locked to a specific row. The green are also locked, but in the opposite direction. So because we're flowing in a row-based direction here, these items here, these green ones, are locked to specific columns instead. Okay, so that's the difference between the yellow and the green. And then finally, the blue are items that aren't locked at all, and are just placed based on what is remaining, essentially. Okay? Now, for the second example, it's the opposite direction. So we still have our red, which is explicitly positioned. Then we have our yellow that are locked to each column here. And then our green are locked to specific rows. And then the blue, once again, basically go around it. Okay? Now, the first 2 grids that we're looking at are using sparse packing, and that's why we have a few holes inside of them. Whereas the last 2, which you will look at later, have less holes, but they're using dense packing. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to basically start off with this first grid and try and replicate this same behavior. But we're going to do it by starting off with a blank canvas. Okay? So let's get started. So the first step that the auto placement algorithm will take is to place our explicit positioned items. So what I've got over here is basically a rule that shows those explicit items in the first grid here. So if I now uncomment that and save, we've got our 3 explicit items. So if we have a look at the current grid that we have over here, we know that we've got item 13 up in the top left here, 19 is here, and 4 is here. Now I'm going to address these in order of number. So the first one I'm going to explicitly position here is number 4. So coming over, underneath this rule, I'm going to grab the selector for item number 4 here and paste below. And now I'm going to set a grid row of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a grid row of 5, and then a grid column of 1, 2, 3, 4, just like so. Now if I come over to what I've got here and save, we can see that item number 4 is where it should be compared to how it is here. Cool. So the next one I'll do is 13. So we'll grab the selector for 13. We'll copy this, paste underneath, and then we'll do, once again, get it into the right position, which is 1, 1. So I'll just go grid row 1, grid column 1, just like that. And save. And well, nothing changes, but that's because it was already there. Cool. Now 19, where is that going? Well, we know it's starting in line 3 on the row side and finishing 2 rows later. and it's also starting at line 2 and finishing 2 columns later. So I would do the following. I just grab this selector, copy that, paste, and now go grid row start, and we're going to set that to line 3, and then we'll go grid row end span 2, just like that. If I come back and see what we've got at the moment, well, it's not in the right column yet, but that's fine. It should be spanning 2. Why it hasn't spanned 2, not quite sure. What do we got? Grid row end span 2. Oh yeah, it might be spanning 2 here. It's just a little hard to see. In fact, it looks like it's actually spanning 2 rows. Sorry, my bad. So it's doing the right thing. And then we want a grid column of line 2. So that's well, actually, we'll put it underneath the row start. Grid column start. We'll set that to line 2. And then a grid column end of span 2 as well. And now, if I save this, and that should be grid column end, not grid column. And now it is where it should be. Yep, if we compare the two, they're the same. Cool. So the auto placement algorithm always explicitly positions the items first. So now we've done that. Cool. The next step is to now start processing all the items that are locked to rows, starting with the first row. So we've got items 7, 10, and 22 here that are locked to row 1. So we can come down, and now I'm going to show these ones. So I'm going to uncomment this here, just like so, and make sure they come up. So save, and there's 7, 10, and 22. Cool. Now currently they are on row 1, but they're not locked to row 1. So if we were to add more items, they wouldn't stay there. So what we need to do now is basically add in here a grid row of 1, just like that. And when we do that, well, nothing changes, but we know it's at least locked to the first row now. Now the other thing we need to do is just make sure that item 22 here is spanning 2 columns and 2 rows. So we'll grab the selector for that, just like so. And I'm going to set a grid row end to span 2 and a grid column to span 2 and save. In fact, yep, I'll save now, and we can see that they're the same when we toggle between the two. Cool. So that is the items that are locked to the first row. So now we move to row 2. And do we have any items that are locked to row 2? Yes, we do. We have item 21. So we'll come down and we'll make sure that that's locked to row 2. The first will show it, just like so. So we'll come back and save. And well, it looks like it's in the right position at the moment, but again, it's not locked. So let's lock it with a grid row of 2 and save. And bingo, Bob's your uncle. We don't need to do anything else here. Moving on. We now have items 3 and 18 that are locked to row 4 here. So let's make sure that they're doing that now. So come here, and I made a mistake. But now we'll show those. So if I come back over to what we currently have, we can see 3 and 18 are still in the second row. But we want them to be in row 4. So let's do that. Grid row 4. Save. Cool. And now we can see that 3 and 18 are locked to the 4th row. But in this situation, 18 is actually coming before 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the order of the third item and give it a higher value. So order 1 and save. And if I come and check now we do have 18 that's before 3. Cool. Now that is all the items that are locked to a row. From this point onwards, we're just going to add the remaining items in. So with that said, I'm actually now going to remove all these display grids and all this stuff, and I'm just going to show all the items that are in this row sparse container now. So we'll just delete all these. And we'll come to the very top. So we no longer need that either. And where this display none was, we now put grid and center. And if I come over to what we currently have and save, now we can see we've got all the items in play. Now let's have a look at the ordering of these remaining items. So firstly, we can see 2 is before 1. Right, so we've got 1 here, then 2, but 2 is before 1. So that's probably the first change I'll make down here, is at the very bottom of this row sparse section, which is this bit here. We'll just go row sparse container. I'll target the second item and give that a value of -1 and start there. Now if I come and have a look, we can now see item 2 is before 1. Now 2 and 1 are exactly where they should be, so we don't need to proceed any further. The next number in the sequence is 5, but as we can see, that shouldn't be in column 1. That's actually being locked to column 4. So let's do that. So I'm going to grab this rule here, change it to 5, and instead of having an order, I'm going to go grid, column, and set that to, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth column. And save, and if we check, well, now we can see 5 is where it should be. So let's have a look at the rest of what's here. Well, 6 is actually not the next number. In fact, 6 is all the way down the bottom here. It's the very last option in this whole grid. So now what we need to do is we need to set the order value of the 6th item to be higher than everything else. All right, so let's do that. Save. And if we check, now we can see number 6 is the last item. That makes 8 now come after 5, which if we check is correct. Then we have 18, 19, and 13 before we reach 9, which is correct. Then 11, 12, 14, and 4. 11, 12, 14, and 4. And then we have 15 down here in the second column. And if we look at what we've currently got, it's still up here in this last position. So we need to now do a column lock on number 15 to the second column. So with that said, we'll grab this selector again. We'll change the item number to 15. And we'll go grid, column. And I believe I said it was the second column. So let's come over and save and see if we get the same result. And we do. Right, so now we've created those 2 gaps there, which is the same as what we have here. Then we have 16 and 17. I think they're correct. Yep, they're currently correct. And then we have 20 again. So 20 is down on the third column of the next line. So all we need to do here is go, okay, I'm going to grab the 20th item and set that as a grid column 3 and save. And if I come over and check, now we've got the 20th item in that middle position there. So what do we have left now? What comes after 20? Well, 23 does. But as we can see, 23 is being asked to span 3 columns and 2 rows. So we need to factor that in. So let's do that. So we'll go like so. And we'll change the item from 20 to 23. And here, I'm just going to use a grid column of span 3. And just before that, we'll use a grid row of span 2. And save. And hopefully, if we've done everything right, this should look exactly the same as the end result here, which it does. Cool. Now I just realized that we've been going at this for a little while, so maybe I'll just end the video here, and I'll see you all in the next video.